A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
What's working for a lot of my remodelers right now? They're implementing JobTread. It's helping them tighten up estimating, improve communication with clients, and most importantly, increase profits. I've seen firsthand how JobTread users are hitting better gross profit margins and making faster decisions because they've got the numbers at their fingertips. If you're still trying to manage projects with spreadsheets or a patchwork of tools, it might be time to level up. Head over to JobTread.com and check it out for yourself. I have dozens and dozens of my remodeling clients using JobTread. They love it. Go to www.JobTread.com.
Hey, this is just a quick little intro to today's episode. What you're about to hear is my story. It says it's on the Builder Stories podcast that Eric Fortenberry does, and I'm a business coach, not necessarily a builder, but he was kind enough to have me on the show, and it was a little different where he really asked me about my past, how I got into doing what I'm doing, and of course we also talked about how we can help remodelers. By listening to this, you're going to hear some good tips, some good ideas to keep you a remodeler on the rise. If you haven't checked out JobTread, JobTread's a wonderful software. Eric's the CEO of that. So if this is new to you, if you've never heard of them, check out JobTread.com while you're at it. Enjoy the interview.
Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I've got a really special episode, really special guest, Kyle Hunt. He is the founder, owner, head honcho, number one coach extraordinaire of Remodelers On The Rise. Really excited to have Kyle on here today. He has done an incredible job building a very, very active and engaged group of remodelers that are all very focused on continuing to improve their business. They learn from one another. They've got a very active online community. We actually just got back from one of Kyle's events that he hosted. So we'll hear a little bit more about that. But without further ado, I want to welcome you, Kyle. Appreciate you coming on and spending a little time with us today.
Thank you for having it. We went from like before the record button, just kind of talking normal. And then Eric went from like a 6 energy level to a 10. It's like the camera started, the recording started, and you transformed in front of me.
All right. Well, that was a behind the scenes kind of.
Behind the scenes is nice. It's fun.
But give us, again, Kyle, why don't you give us a little background, who you are, how did you come up with Remodelers On The Rise, and what's that all about?
Yeah, I'll go kind of all the way back to the origin story. I'll go full origin, where always been kind of entrepreneurial. In high school, we had a thing called a computer back then, folks. The youngins listening to this, we had dial-up interwebs. I remember that, and I took a website design class like my junior year of high school, and I was always a baseball card collector, and I started buying and selling baseball cards and realized, man, I could do this online. So I started my first business called MajorLeagueCards.com and got a P.O. box in Tecumseh, Michigan, where I grew up, and just went through the whole process of, this is how website hosting works. This is how you set up the actual site. This is how you drive traffic to it. So even from early on, I've always been kind of entrepreneurial, doing some website related stuff. And my senior year of college, before I graduated with a kind of finance and business degree from the Western Michigan University, I don't have a lot of pride in my school, but they did just win the national championship in hockey. Go Broncos. Go Broncos. But my senior year, I was getting ready to graduate. I was kind of applying for some basic banking jobs and stuff. And I remembered this set of spreadsheets that I created for my baseball coach in high school. Basically a spreadsheet that had all the statistics for batting and pitching and defense. And I created this thing called Track the Team and wrote up a little sales letter and mailed it out to 500 high schools in Michigan. to baseball coaches and softball coaches. One of the gentlemen who bought it, his name's Jim Long, and he had some questions on how it worked, and I, did a little support call with him, and he goes, "Hey, I saw your letter. We're actually thinking about creating a position at our company. Wondering if they're teaching this stuff at school." And he said, "We're a plumbing, heating, cooling, remodeling company, and we're looking for somebody to take over our marketing, do our marketing and advertising, do our website, do this, do that." And I said, "Sir, you're talking about me here. That's all the stuff that I love. I'm actually just graduated in a few months. Could we sit down and talk?" So ended up playing golf at his country club. I'm trying to be humble with my golf after the Rise conference because it was a thing, but I whooped his butt, and he offered me a lovely little job. I think it started out at $41,000 with benefits. I had a little office. So I started working with him in his remodeling and, frankly, his plumbing, heating, cooling business. So didn't have a big background in contracting. My grandpa was a painter. My other grandpa was a builder, so maybe it's in my blood, but don't have any skills as far as swinging the hammer, and just really started to work with him for a number of years, started getting involved in managing his showroom and his 4 designers, get involved on the financial side, and that's when 2008 rolled around, and I said to my wife, Sarah, I said, "Honey, we got no money in the bank, crappy economy here in Michigan, 2008 crash. We got 1 kid, another on the way. I want to quit my job and start my own business." And that's when I kind of weaned off of long kitchen and bath design and started up what is now Remodelers on the Rise.
Nice.
That's the full backstory.
I had never heard the majorleaguecards.com. We went really far back there. And I was kind of wondering, where's this going, Kyle?
Yeah.
But then, you pulled it in, and man, that's pretty cool. So you talked yourself into your first job, and you came in there and you helped them with some creative marketing, advertising type initiatives, got a feel for the type of, company, what it's like to be in a construction company. And then, you decided at, one of the most challenging times financially that you would just double down and just, take even more risk to start up Remodelers on the Rise. All right.
Yeah.
So
what ended up happening is I'd studied a book called Duct Tape Marketing by John Jantz, and I became a duct tape marketing coach. So I gave John 10 grand and went down to Kansas City for training. So when I started my business, I was kind of mostly focused on marketing of like, hey, I've got this book, proven, practical, simple, effective marketing. Can I come and speak to your group? Can I come in and talk? And shortly after I started my business is when I said, you know what, I'm going to take some of my own medicine. Don't be all things to all people. Same thing for all of you remodelers and contractors listening. We can't be all things to all people. And I really stuck my flag in the ground and said, I'm just going to work with remodelers. So I started doing Home Builder Association speaking gigs, picked up a client, and I was kind of off and rolling.
Yeah. So was the first, so it was kind of to help with marketing type services was the original premise here?
Yes. Yeah. So it's kind of small business marketing, proven, practical, simple, effective marketing. Who is our ideal client and project? What makes us different? And then kind of going through all of the tactical things that you can kind of create your marketing plan around. So really that was my foray into things. Did that for a few years. And then as I really started focusing and niching just on remodelers, all of a sudden, okay, I'm working with 10 remodelers and they have questions about the sales process and they have questions about the financial side. Well, I majored in finance, and really over that first, I would say 6, 8, 10 years of my business, 6 years of my business, I'm 17 years in now, really started going, okay, I don't just offer marketing, I'm really turning into a full business coach for remodelers.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how did your first customers find out about you though?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's and I love asking, contractors, what was your first job like? What was your first customer like? I mean, so how did they find you, and what was that like? I was early Kyle, what was it, his advice?
Yeah. Hang on. I got to go back in the old archives to think about that. One thing I did was my bosses were kind to me where I kind of said, hey, I want to do this thing. Could I just start working for you 4 days a week and then 3 days a week and then 2 days a week? So, I wasn't replacing a huge salary, which helps. I got some advice from a longtime mentor of mine that said, look, you got 1 kid, another one on the way, you got a mortgage. Like the longer you wait, the harder this is going to be. So there was a little bit of leap of faith. My first clients, it was really before I 100% focused on remodeling came from a B&I group that I was a member of, and where I represented Long Kitchen and Bath Design. So Nick Hopwood, a financial advisor, John Dawson, a CPA, Matt Fahome, a State Farm agent. So they kind of said, yeah, I'll give you a couple $100, Kyle, and started a little bit through that. Those were really my first folks. And then shortly after, I did a speaking gig at the Lansing Home Builder Association, Key Builders, Oddfellows Contracting, two longtime clients of mine. Went up to Bay City, Michigan, Lawrence Smith Window and Door, Lloyd's Cabinet Shop. So that's when the HBAs really started to go with getting into the remodeling side.
Nice. I mean, that directly, relates to a great way for builders to get out there and, meet people, network, go to those local events where the, other home builders are, where the architects, designers, realtors, so it sounds like kind of the fundamentals of, finding those early customers, doing the blocking and tackling. You got out there and you did it.
Yeah. And there's also something to be said for, I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this of years into it, you're like, oh yeah, that was a really great idea. That was smart. Yeah, I always knew this would be a success. But man, if I would have known 2 years in what I didn't know when I started it, I don't know if I'd have the guts to start it. I was kind of young and optimistic and, oh yeah, this is going to be easy. The reality is for everyone that's ever started a business, maybe you're a unicorn who was just smooth. I'm sure Eric was just sprinkled some of his magic dust on there and everything was great. But for all businesses, and I'm sure that's the case for you too, of man, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. There's a lot of, is this going to work? There's a lot of coming upstairs when I worked in the basement going, crap, I got to sell $1,000 still this month to cover this. Just a lot of hustle. And frankly, I kind of missed some of that, a little bit of that excitement of going, holy cow, I made a sale. That was so exciting. And fill in the bucket for the month. So it's a lot of just hustle. If you're just starting out and you're listening to this, keep your head down, keep after it. It's not easy, but on the other side of it, there's just so much reward of building something that you started from scratch. So keep at it.
Absolutely. There's nothing greater than seeing something that you just incubated from the ground up, build and grow and develop. And, it's pretty exciting. So you talked about though, kind of there was a sort of slowly over several years, but you kind of transitioned to being the kind of the holistic business coach. Were you just seeing with your clients, they were having more, challenges beyond just the marketing, or maybe all of your marketing initiatives were just making them so wildly successful that they struggled to scale the rest of the business? Were you seeing these kind of challenges firsthand and decided that you could kind of help them with those too?
Yeah, there was definitely some of that. Yeah, I think that sounds good. My marketing was so successful that they were overwhelmed with work. We'll go with that. We'll go with that story. There certainly was a little bit of that. When I look back and I think about, once things settled down after kind of that 2008, 2009, you get into 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, the market came back pretty strong for a lot of remodelers then. And all of a sudden, instead of these years of, man, we got to find leads, we got to market, there was a good influx of work. And kind of naturally through that, as I was working with a core group of remodelers for a number of years, it was all right, well, let's really refine the sales process. Let's talk about from the time the initial call comes in to how we're qualifying them, how we're talking about their project and their budget, how we're charging for design and project development. And then naturally, I'm a numbers guy at heart. The financial side kind of just really piqued my interest and was a huge need, still is, right, for a lot of remodelers who are excellent at building and doing the work. But as far as the financial knowledge, as far as the sales work, as far as the marketing, so much of what I do and what I did back then was trying to coach and guide them so that the business side was just as strong as the building side.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I think about you, I see, I definitely see kind of the marketing aspects, the sales, the numbers, but kind of the thing that comes out to me that I see the biggest impact that you really, make on people is this leadership. I feel like you're really great at coaching people on how they can, elevate themselves and the people around them into better leaders. And obviously that means that you've got to cover all your bases and do the fundamentals and the blocking and the tackling, and we can't skip over the marketing and the job costing or whatever it may be. But I think that, unlike a lot of others, you really do put a lot of effort into getting to know your clients and really understanding their challenges, and I'd say both on a personal and a professional level, how does that all kind of tie in together? Like, can you kind of shed a little bit more light on that? Because, I saw at your event, I want to talk about that here in a second, but like, I've seen how, you and your wife, Sarah, have also started putting together some curriculum about, the family dynamic and the husband, wife, and the relationship, and like, strong home. Like, how does all that kind of come into play here?
Yeah, it's great questions. Before we started this, I was telling Eric, I'm like, I'm not used to telling my story. I'm used to just coaching or teaching. So thank you for the good questions and the trips down memory lane, and hopefully we'll continue to weave some value in between. On the relationship side, I guess I've always approached business from a couple ways. One being, I enjoy my work when I can be authentically myself. I remember Bob Burnside, one of my local and early clients, Fireside Home Construction. I remember him responding to one of my early emails that I sent to, my list. By the way, if you have an email list, it starts with 20 people, and then you add another 10, another 10, another 10. Stay in touch with your previous clients, create that list. But I remember Bob responding back. I think I'd created an email of like, hey, this is me and my son, Thomas, who just did the following. And, I started my business in an effort to make sure work-life balance and da-da-da. I think I was sharing something about my family in a business email. And he responded going, hey, this is super weird. Like, you should be just talking about business. Why are you talking about your family? And I remember at that moment going, okay, Bob's super, super smart, very successful. I respect what he has to say. Why am I doing this? And it was very much like, this is the type of business I want to run. I want to talk to people, not just about their business, but about their life. I want to work with somebody like Stu Kavner. I remember this vividly. One of my early clients, Innovative Remodeling out in Rockford, Michigan. And I remember talking to him about his sales process and going, Kyle, I have to do evening appointments. Like, I'm missing the kids' stuff and I'm getting home late and my wife is spread super thin. But like, you don't understand, like, these homeowners, they're busy during the day and they only want to meet in the evenings. And to coach him on that and to limit that to 1 day a week and to guide him on how to do that effectively, and for that to totally transform how he approached his sales process, and the fact that as he did that, his wife liked him more as a result of that, and he felt like a more present husband and dad, that just lights me up. That's what gets me excited. Cute. You made $827,000 last year. You made $222,000 last year. Your marriage is a mess. You're feeling super distant from your kids. You don't have any time for, sleep or your hobbies or other things that you're passionate about. Like, we've got to get the right things in proper order. So the way that I've approached kind of relationships with clients and the way that I teach and the way I just enjoy running my business is, it's kind of quirky because I'm a little quirky. I talk about things that some people would be like, dude, that's a little weird. You opened your Rise conference talking about your weight loss? That's weird. I would never do that. I'm just being myself. I'm connecting with people and building know, like, and trust with them. And I love the intersection of business and personal life and financial. Yes, being financially strong and knowing the business side. To what end? So that the business can support your lifestyle, not so that the business can run your life. So I'm just passionate about that.
Yeah. And you certainly make it fun. I got to attest to just having my own relationship with you and going to your events and being part of your community. I mean, you certainly do a great job of sprinkling in that comedy, that humor, that good time. I don't know if you were a stand-up comic, at some point in your past life, or where that comes from, but you definitely got a good wit about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think even in the JobTread Connect keynote, there's something about like, you ask people, do they want to hear about like a frog or a pair of underwear or something like that? Was that
See, that was random, wasn't it? Yeah. But that was a compliment. Well, just so that people know, that was a compliment to JobTread. Eric Bosey, a mutual client of mine, he's in one of our peer groups and a JobTread client. And Eric Bosey's getting in line to check in at 2024 JobTread Connect. He's all excited. He came down from Illinois to Dallas, and he's in line, and his rep. Do you remember who the rep was?
I think it was Travis.
I think it was Travis. And Travis is behind him in line, and Eric goes, "Oh crap!" And Travis is like, "What?" And he goes, "I hate to say it, but I forgot my underwear. I didn't pack it." And Travis goes, "I got you. At JobTread, we deliver amazing customer service. This is what we're all about. This is one of our core values. This is the experience from anything that our clients need. We hook them up. I think Travis went to the store, provided that. So I heard that story earlier in the week, and I kind of threw out that as a little, hey, do you want to talk about eat your frog, the most important thing you need to get done that you're most likely to put off? Or do you want to hear a story about underwear? And I think the audience was like, all right, we'll take it. What is it? So yeah, I can't help myself sometimes. I did get off the stage after that and go, well, was that a little too weird or was that pretty funny? And we're like, all right, I think it was pretty funny.
No, that was good. That was good. And definitely memorable, if nothing else.
If nothing else. If nothing else. So yeah, I'm just passionate. I'm passionate about all that stuff.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us, I know you've got Remodelers Community, which is your online Facebook group, a couple thousand people in that, very active, very engaged group. You've also got the Remodelers on the Rise, your VIP club. Mm-hmm. So kind of tell us and what else do you have?
Yeah.
All the different pieces, because I feel like there's a lot of pieces that, we sort of need you to pull it all together here for us and give us a rundown of those pieces.
I'd be happy to do that. So, my marketing approach is getting someone who has a need to know, like, and trust you. Getting a remodeler who would be a great fit for our services to know, like, and trust you. So the way that I've really approached my business is by offering as much as I can without people giving me a dime, which is weird and a little odd, but it's worked quite well. So free Facebook group, remodelerscommunity.com. You get in there and you're going to recognize, oh, wait, most Facebook groups are annoying and obnoxious. Turns out maybe Eric and Kyle are running the two groups that actually are super helpful, because JobTread's Facebook group has a similar vibe as Remodelers Community. Like, people get in there and we're actually wanting to help each other. We want to share. We're going to reach out and share templates and tools and resources. So Remodelers Community, I probably say no to 50% of the people that apply because I want it to be a really good fit. And it's got an environment in it that people are really wanting to help. So we got Remodelers Community, a real nice free Facebook group. We got something called Remodelers Vault, which is just a set of resources, templates, tools. That's kind of a free resource that our community and myself and our company have kind of put together. We've got the Remodelers on the Rise podcast. We've been doing that week in and week out. So a lot of people end up reaching out that say, hey, I've followed your work for a long time on Remodelers Community. Hey, I've followed Remodelers on the Rise and the podcast for years. I'm interested in what you guys actually can offer. So that's kind of all the stuff before anybody's paid us a dime. And then, once they kind of say, hey, how do you work? If your remodeler is kind of 1.5 million in revenue and below, then the VIP club is a great fit. It's got all of our courses. It's got all of our training. We do a live call every Wednesday at 2:00 Eastern. It's a great place to kind of grow and get some of those fundamentals in place. And then if you're kind of above that revenue mark, we have our peer groups. So we currently have 5 peer groups. They've got 10 companies in each from around the country. There's a spring in-person retreat, a fall in-person retreat, monthly group calls, quarterly one-on-one calls, accountability buddy. I run 2 of those, and then I have 3 coaches, Brian Sebring and Peter Rainey and Curtis Lawson, who are each leading one of those groups. So that is a great place for modelers to find themselves, to really build even tighter relationships, community, friendships, and that accountability and push and shared wisdom to help them grow. So VIP club, peer group, 2 main offers, and then we also offer one-on-one coaching.
That's awesome. And so is the one-on-one coaching, is that with you?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
And there may be some of our coaches who are going to be interested in taking some of that on in the year ahead.
Nice. So the peer group, so like you only open them up at certain times. Like, is that like if I wanted to go join a peer group, like, can I join at any point, or is it only kind of when there's openings available or when new groups get found?
Yeah, we have kind of done a proper launch over the last couple, so we have kind of launched them. There's 1 spot in Peter's group, 1 spot in Brian's group, 2 spots in Curtis's group right now. So I actually am chatting tomorrow with a person who might be interested in joining it. So there's a little bit of a room in there. We definitely have a certain cap on the number, just to make sure we're delivering the most value to the group. But there's a few spots available.
All right. And both Peter and Brian, they are JobTread experts. So to any of the JobTread users out there, you would definitely be in good company with these two.
Indeed. Indeed. And in particular, I think Peter Rainey is an absolute JobTread nerd.
Oh, he is.
Yes.
He's even created additional companies to help provide services to the JobTread community, which is pretty awesome as well.
What's the name of that? I can't remember.
They got like 3 different names to it. There's the Contractor CTO, Win Your Data, and DataX.
Okay.
So the branding is a little bit challenging with 3 names, but the integration in JobTread is called DataX. And then the Win Your Data is also, I think, in there too. But I think just general, I mean, it's him, Elliot Wittstruck, and Dominic Eidson. They've kind of, the trio of them have come together and have actually formed this kind of this IT, consulting automation company where they help JobTread users all day long get set up, build out custom workflows, integrations, and then they've also built their own little kind of set of app integration to JobTread. They've got their own little ecosystem going there, which is pretty neat.
Pretty cool. Well, you remembered all 3. You remember all 3 partners. You remember all 3 names. You're doing great.
Yeah. Well,
are you worried like I am? As you, I think we're similar of age. You add another 10, 15 years to us. I'm really worried that I'm going to start forgetting names like crazy.
The name badges are really helpful, like with in-person events. Now, I think, just a little feedback that I forgot to give you, but you got to put it on both sides.
Oh, we got that. Oh, yes.
Flipped around. All I see is blank, and they're drawing blanks. And
yes. Yes. Like anything, like this conference we put on, we've done events, we've had 30, 40 people. This one, we had 100 attendees. We had 7 sponsors. Our favorite one, JobTread, obviously. No offense to the other 6. And we had breakout sessions, so there's a lot of moving parts to it. And I was kind of talking to one of my clients, and I said, it was similar to, if you've been doing kitchens and baths and you take on your first addition project, you're like, well, we could do it. Like, we know how to do this, but there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of new things. There's a lot of new elements to it. And putting this conference on was kind of similar of like, all right, we've done plenty of kitchens. We've done plenty of bathrooms. And luckily, some of the biggest feedback out of Bailey and Cassie beautifully executing this on my team was, hey, 2-sided name tags. Come on. If that's some of the biggest feedback, that means there was a pretty flawless execution for the most part. Shout out to Bailey and Cassie.
Absolutely. So why don't you kind of take us back for a second? So tell us about Rise Conference. This was your inaugural event. How did it come about? What was it? Who came?
Yeah, I think and I'm struggling to talk about myself so much. I feel like I've been talking about myself. That's kind of what this builder story is. But if I may, I'm itching to get into some more value delivery. When you're a remodeler and you are in the throes of your business, it is challenging. It can be lonely. It can be frustrating. If you ever wondered why is it so hard to run a remodeling business, it's because it's a really hard business. Like, you could go ahead and compare it. I know I'm a little jaded, because I love remodelers, but go ahead and compare it to other small businesses and compare the complexity of what you do with all of I need to market, I need to sell, I need to reduce slippage, I need to deal with, inspectors, and I got material delays, and I'm pulling together all these different people to work in sync and in harmony. It is a hard business. And frankly, any business, let alone remodelers, we need to step away from the business and we need to recharge. We need to be inspired. We need to remember, why are we doing all of this? As any business owner, we need to be able to step back and to recharge. And what we're kind of aiming for is, as we build more peer groups and as we're doing different things, we're like, man, we need to do kind of an annual conference, little lower price points, get more people there, have it in a way that people can bring some of their team members to it, and just saturate them with fun, with ideas, with inspiration, with in a really big push on implementation. And we had people from all over the country, and we had a lot of local folks bring a lot of their team members, and it was really focused on ideas, inspiration, but implementation. So that was kind of the reason behind it, and kind of what we were trying to pull off.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And again, I never would have guessed that was the first time that you all had put that event on. I mean, it really, aside from, a small little name badge issue here and there, very, very much flawless execution. So super, super awesome event to be part of. And, again, I think that there really is something to be said about taking a little bit of time to, step out of your day-to-day comfort zone, go spend some time learning from others. Like I think so many, builders and contractors out there, like they don't take enough of that time to go do the networking, to go share, their challenges and get feedback and like help each other to grow, because it's like, you get so stuck in the day-to-day, your head's down, you're just focused on, the same kind of blocking and tackling, when there is a much bigger opportunity to really learn and soak up knowledge from others. And so, I think it was awesome that that you facilitated bringing these people together. And again, like when you got people from all over the country, like it's not your, immediate competitor right next door.
Yeah.
You can open up, like you can feel comfortable sharing that, this isn't going to just, be used against you or get, put out in the, front page of, your local newspaper. I mean, like these were real people that, were able to help each other and sharing their best practices. And like, that is just such an invaluable thing this day and age, that I think it does take, a community like what you've built to kind of be able to facilitate bringing the right people together who are going through the same challenges, or, having those opportunities to learn from each other.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I look back at my business, and there's several conferences that I've been to for my own. I remember the first one I went to was Heroic Public Speaking, a guy named Michael Port. I remember getting on a plane. I'm like, wow, this is the first time I'm actually investing in going to a conference just to improve how I do things. And it was crazy impactful for me. And then I think back to like, I can trace so much of my business progress over the years back to being in mastermind groups, being in peer groups with other folks who do similar complementary work, and learning from them. So if you're listening to this, if you're not, like, you might have to scrape together some pennies to go to certain things. You might have to just say, you know what, we do need to put a proper budget in place to go to conferences. Like, it's August. This is probably, you guys are probably super organized, so you're probably going to publish this in the next couple months, but it's probably not too late to find your ticket for JobTread Connect in January 2026. Like, the energy that you get from that, the refueling that you get from that, we need that as business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious. I mean, what were some of the kind of the key takeaways that you feel like, again, like you had a big focus on implementation, like what would you say, you heard the most when people walked away from this event? Like, what were those, couple tangible, things that they are going to be able to implement over the coming weeks and months that you think will make the biggest impact? Yeah,
there's lots of things I've heard of, like, Momentum Construction. They're like, hey, we had our Rise conference recap meeting where we made priorities. I'm like, you guys are doing, that's excellent, right? They had 4 or 5 team members there. So that's a good example. I was talking to Renovations Unlimited this morning. They are going to do a little sandwich board, welcoming people into their office and doing that. So like, there's all kinds of little small things. Another client who they went in and updated their daily logs and their template for their daily logs in JobTread. And they're like, man, I heard McManus share this, and we updated that in our daily logs. People that were talking about Peter Rainey's sales approach and kind of rethinking it. I would say so lots of little things, but there was a lot of talk of, let's not have a haphazard sales process. Let's have a really thought through. We're not going to be salesy. We're going to be elegant in how we do it, but let's make sure we really get clear with our sales process. That was huge. Another big theme I heard, because we had a lot of designers there, we had a lot of production folks there, the focus that we had on that handoff between sales and production, design and production. I heard a lot of meat on that, of going, okay, we need to take those handoffs more seriously. We need to make sure we set up those meetings and do those well. I heard some people say, I'm not charging enough, and I'm also not watching my job costing enough, and we got all kinds of slippage. I need to fix the financial side of things. And then a lot around marketing of going, okay, things are not quite as rip-roaring as they've been the last few years. It's not quite as rip-roaring this last year. We have got to take our marketing plan more serious and put some investment and time into that. So those were some of the kind of small things and big things. There's also a lot of people that are fully invested in my weight And there's also people that are fully invested in a golf match that I'm having with Matt Jenkins on Friday at Moose Ridge Golf Club.
All right. I mean, I think again, there's so much opportunity for people to learn, from each other. It's like I see so many times as entrepreneurs, they just keep charging ahead, but they don't realize they're charging in the wrong direction, and like they just keep making the same mistakes over and over, when it's like, man, if you take a little bit of time to try to see the forest from the trees and study what is working with others who have been there on that same journey as you, just, maybe a little bit ahead, what worked for them, what didn't work. I mean, I think that's, it's invaluable to get that.
I mean, you look at businesses in general, and you look at successful executives, successful businesses, there will be a direct correlation to they seek outside guidance. They are part of peer groups. They have an outside coach. And part of the spoiledness that we have of running a business in 2025 is the amount of resources and coaches and help that's out there is amazing. My grandpa running C.W. Deller Construction in the 60s and 70s, he could talk to some of his competitors, but they're probably like, hey, I'm doing what you're doing. He's not networking with anybody else. Maybe he talks to the pharmacist who's also running a business. This whole business coaching thing in our industry didn't really take hold until, the 80s, and Walt Steppenworth and, Remodelers Advantage going, and Linda Case and Victoria and them doing their great work. So, part of what you need to do in 2025 as a business owner is, yes, invest in some coaching and find a voice and find a company that you resonate with. Like there's people that, are with Tom Reber, the contractor fight, they're attracted to his style and his approach and the way he does it. And it's like, go all in with it. You got people that are with Remodelers Advantage. Remodelers Advantage does great work. Kyle, they're a competitor of yours. Oh, so be it. This industry is big enough. They do great work. They've been around for a long time. You got people like Claudio and Mike Claudio and Win Rate. They were at JobTread Connect, and their approach is different than my approach. His voice and his coach's voices and their focus is different than mine. And then you have my approach where it's very, very much let's blend this work-life balance. Let's get real practical. Let's get real tactical. Let's pick the next right thing we need to work on. I'm probably not going to yell at you too much, and we're not going to do 6 a.m. workouts before, our day one of our events, but that's okay. So in 2025 as a business owner, find your community, find your folks. And frankly, sometimes you can just go find some people that are like you, and you don't even have to pay. Just set up a Zoom call every couple weeks and take that serious. So we're spoiled with the amount of help we have in our businesses. It's also slightly overwhelming. So, find your voice, find somebody you resonate with, and reach out to them and invest in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a very unique vantage point here. We've got, now over 7,400, companies using JobTread, but I can see firsthand the impact that, when somebody joins one of these coaching groups, these communities, these, kind of these peer networks, usually maybe, a month or two, but boom, they start to just pull up and the business, you can just see, literally, on this pretty graph, you can just see their trajectory of their business, just changes, and it's just this new fresh air. There's these new ideas, this new, passion, it's like they get reinvigorated. And I tell people all the time, it's so important that just like what you're saying, you got to find your tribe. You got to find the people that, you can really relate to, their advice is on point. It relates, resonates, makes sense, find the right coach. And I think it's great for everyone to go and, join the communities, consume that free content for a while. Make sure, is the message on? Does this work for you? Is this resonate? Get to talk to others. Other people have worked with those coaches, and then interview the coaches. It's such a great opportunity though. And just like you said, people don't realize this didn't exist back in the day. And just with the internet and, being able to have these virtual connections. I mean, even doing things like you and I are doing right now, right? That really and relatively, hasn't been around and possible for that long. And so, again, I think you've done a great job building this community, and it truly, is so obvious that like you give a whole lot more than you really take, and try to focus on yourself. Like it's about creating as much value for others. And I think there's so much of that content and that opportunity, but like, again, it's in one ear out the other if you don't focus on implementation. You got to implement. And that's where I think a lot of people, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I feel like a lot of people, they consume content and they hear other people and they hear, what they need to do. They know that they need to do it, but then something happens and they just drop the ball and they don't do it.
Yeah.
Why do you think that happens?
Because overwhelm, laziness, addiction to scrolling on our phones, not using our brains and saying, you know what, I might need to move my body and feel healthy so I have more energy. I might need to go to bed on time and get some sleep so I can wake up refreshed. I might need to pay attention to when I have the highest energy level, my green zone time during the day, and I need to put my hardest work right there. You're focusing on 6 different improvements instead of taking one thing and driving it to implementation and completion. You need to use the parking lot. Hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to put it in the parking lot, and we're not going to do anything with it right now because I'm going to be tunnel focused on this. We get into comparison game and we start getting lethargic and frustrated because they're doing it better, and then that drags us down. We got a knucklehead client that we shouldn't have taken on, and that drives our energy down, and we feel like our business is a failure. We got a knucklehead employee that needed to be fired 6 months ago, and you're putting up with him or her, and your ace employee just left because you didn't handle it from a leadership standpoint. Your daughter just breaks up with her boyfriend and you're dealing with that. That happened today. Eric, that happened today. Oh, it happened today.
There's a million fish in the sea.
That's right. And doggone it, that boy's silly for making this decision. Anyways, I don't want to talk about her, else I'll tear up for her, but it's raw and fresh. But it's all of those things. But more than anything, a couple other things. One, it's not being clear on where you're going with your business. I mean, when I got clear with my 5-year vision a couple years ago, boy, have I implemented more and more and more. So like it's also like you're dishing out, your energy, and you're helping people, and you're not filling back up with coaching, with good ideas. So you're sitting there on E and you're like, yeah, I know I got to implement that. Yeah, I know I got to get my job costing going. I know I got to review my P&L, but like, man, I'm just overwhelmed and I'm just frustrated. Coaching helps kick you out of that. So, part of it for me is like, when I'm implementing, it's because I have a vision of where I'm going. I'm focused on it and I'm taking it serious. But there's been plenty of seasons where I'm just kind of coasting and I'm just kind of like, yeah, things are good and I'm serving my clients, but yeah, I probably should implement that. But ooh, look at that bright shiny object. Ooh, look at that. That's what outside coaching can help tremendously for that. 2 best business decisions I made. One was to narrow down my focus and just work with remodelers. That has enabled me to be a specialist, and I've gone very deep into a very narrow niche. And you can put me up against pretty much anybody. I don't want to sound pompous. You can put me up against anybody, and I can hold my own. Oh, you're running a remodeling business, and you want to improve it? I've put in my 28,000 hours of studying this. I've worked with hundreds of them. I'm good at that. So that specialist, that was one of my best decisions. And then I hired my first business coach. His name was Dove Gordon, and Dove held my butt accountable to make good decisions, to get some structure in my business, and was pivotal to me getting my crap together and getting my business going. So those are some of the reasons. But more than anything, hey, all those reasons, so be it. Let's not look in the past. We look in the rearview mirror, just screws up our neck. Look at what's next, pick the next right thing, and go implement it.
Hey there, remodelers. Quick break from the lovely show today to tell you about a tool I'm seeing more and more of my clients use and love, and that is JobTread. JobTread is an all-in-one construction management software that helps you simplify your sales process, stay on time and on budget with projects, and know your numbers from start to finish. If you're still juggling spreadsheets, emails, and whiteboards, this is the kind of system that brings everything together in one place. Estimates, scheduling, job costing, invoicing, even a client portal that helps you create happier customers. Plus, the reporting tools make it easy to track your profitability in real time. And if you're just getting started, they've got boot camps, a fantastic support team, and an annual user conference that brings remodelers together from all over the country. Go check out JobTread.com, and see how it can help you streamline, manage, and grow your remodeling business.
It's amazing what you can do in a 10 days of focused, intentional effort on what you can implement. But man, if you're distracted with 5 different things, you're not going to make much progress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what about, like, again, I hear you. I think a lot of times there's a lot of laziness, just, kind of not doing what they know they need to do. But then what about for all those people out there who they have someone on the leadership team in their company who, is like you and I, just coming up with a million ideas a moment, just kind of keeps, brings the parking lot right into the front living room. Like, how do you handle those people? Because sometimes, too many ideas and too much excitement, like it leads you to just want to go and do everything all at once, and you can't do that either.
Yeah. I've learned over the years, more focus on fewer things allows the business to make more progress. We slow down to speed up. We focus on one intentional thing instead of 5, and we make more progress. Financials, you can teach people financials and the blocking and tackling and numbers, and you kind of know what's going to come out the other side. You can develop your sales process, hone that, practice that. You can kind of predict it. You implement a marketing plan and a budget, you can kind of predict that. This thing that you just brought up of leadership is a incredibly complicated, nuanced, tricky, amazing, difficult ball of wax. So that person you just described, I'm like, I love that person. Holy cow, you're not even the owner of the business, and you're coming up with all of these ideas. It's like even off the clock, you're thinking about ideas. This is amazing. Now, if that same person also stalls out when they're 20% through installing it, I've got some leadership to do. I've got some teaching to do. I've got some coaching to do, so I can take this ball of energy and teach that person and guide that person to harness that into the implementation part. The idea part, the inspiration part, that's sexy. That's amazing. That's wonderful. The implementation is drudgery sometimes, is difficult sometimes. To keep that energy that person has and make sure that they're putting that towards implementation, oh, baby, I'm going to praise them like crazy when they're making progress. I'm going to remind them, our August focus is what again? Oh, right, job costing. No. Okay, we need to focus on that. Oh, but in September, I'm super excited to dig into that idea with you. So that's when we get into leadership. We get into doing one-on-one meetings with folks. And, we've got, as leaders of our business, we've got to guide, some of our employees. We also have to make sure they're feeling rewarded. They're feeling heard. They're feeling seen. They're feeling like they're contributing. That's where leadership is, this never-ending, fun ball of excitement that we all get to impart and deal with and be excited about.
Absolutely. Well, and you had me come and talk about, building a team that's aligned with, with vision and purpose. Like, I mean, how would you say you've seen that, and how has that impacted, some of your clients where, maybe they came in and they didn't have that, you help kind of coach them through it. And then what impact have you seen that make on their business?
I'll use one example being one of my active clients right now, and they're in one of our peer groups. He's been growing his business. He's added 4 or 5 people to his business recently. He's doubled his revenue over the last 2 years. He's got his financials more organized, and he has 4 or 5 of his team members that seem to be rowing in the same direction. And he's worked on his core values. He's worked on where we're going. He's really finally been able to, it's easier to make clients happy and to make sure they have a certain experience when you are the owner and you control so much of that. When you start bringing team members in, that's a whole nother challenge. And he's got one person on his team that either is the right person in the wrong seat, or potentially is just the wrong person and the wrong seat, and we might need to make a change. And that's where it gets really tricky and really challenging. But he's so clear with what his core values are. He's so clear with building camaraderie amongst his team that it's becoming, the decision he needs to make is becoming really crystal clear. And I think that's when you're clear with where you're going, the feel, the culture of what you're trying to build, the camaraderie that you're trying to build, pretty clearly when people are rowing in the same direction. And sometimes that person that's not can be guided, can be led, can be encouraged, can be helped into that role. And sometimes we need to make changes to protect that culture that you so carefully have been building. So that's kind of one example of kind of what you're asking. And the keynote that Eric Fortenberry gave on day one of the Rise conference. Woo.
Yeah, that was a one of a kind there. I mean, if only we had it recorded, we could have, shared it with others. But
and I would feel bad about that, but I go, you know what? We had enough moving parts and pieces, and adding all that recording stuff would have been different, but we are for sure getting the audio version next year, and probably for the main stage, I think we'll have to do some video.
Yeah. So what, again, you've got a unique vantage point here too. Like what would you say are the biggest struggles that remodel business owners, leadership, like what are the most common kind of biggest struggles that people have, running their businesses?
Yeah, I'd say haphazard. I'll go kind of around the horn, and some people have some of these more than others. But a haphazard and an unclear and I don't truly understand my numbers. That's where so much of it starts. Am I pricing correctly? Am I actually bringing projects in at the gross profit margin I'm supposed to? How do I blend like revenue minus cost goods sold and gross profit and add in my overhead? How much can I pay myself? Do I need to charge more? Do I need to charge less? Truly understanding your financials is such a foundational part of running a successful remodeling business. Put another way, I've seen a lot of remodelers over the years. There's a direct correlation between remodelers who are growing and who are in control of their business and who are making good money from their business, a direct correlation between that and they know their numbers. So if you are a 4 out of 10, 1 being pitiful, 10 being amazing, and understanding your financials, make that your top priority. You can do it. Even if you're not numbers driven, you absolutely can get a good handle on your financials. So that's an issue I see often, and also some of the biggest bang for the buck. I see haphazard sales processes. I don't know, I've done this for a while. I just kind of shoot from the hip. Versus, hey, we have 5 steps to our sales process. Step 1 is the following. I don't know, we just offer free design and development, and we can't charge for that in our area. No. We have our design and project development process. Here's what that looks like. Here's the steps for that. So really dialing in on the sales process. Issue I see often, big time solution. And also, I don't like marketing. Marketing is hard. I don't get marketing. That is a constant problem that people have, and we need to hire somebody to handle that or really take the marketing hat seriously. It's such a fuel for growth and being able to select projects that we want. And too often we've built our business around, just repeat and referral work, which is great, but that's only going to take you so far. If you want to grow beyond that, we need other marketing channels to be generating leads and turning them into paid projects. So those are common. And then the other thing that people start to realize is what we were just talking about of, oh crap, I actually have to really amp up my ability to lead a team. Oh, wow, I'm growing this remodeling business. And as I hand off production management and as I hand off estimating and as I hand off this and that, turns out 90% of my role is leading this team that I've developed. And I feel a little inept at leadership. It's not a skill that I have. Oh, there's so much growth that can happen there and so much excitement. When I used to think that I didn't want a team and I didn't want employees. I have 180'd on that so much, in that I love having a team. I love providing a great place to work and encouraging them and trying to make it so that it would be nearly impossible for them to want to leave this business because of how well they enjoy working here. That's what's filled me up. You reach a certain level in your business and you're like, okay, I'm keeping the lights on, I'm making money, life is good. I'm making more than I ever dreamed I would make when I started this thing, whatever number that is. And then you realize, okay, well, what's the next challenge I have? And so often the leadership side is what I see so many of my clients just lean into and really enjoy.
Yeah.
So those are some of them.
No, that's all great advice. I'm curious, do you have like, 1 or 2 of like your favorite like success stories where, you've just seen such a transformation, they've, been able to build that team or, crushing those numbers or, any sort of stories you have to share there?
It's interesting because when I get to ask that, like I could go and say, hey, so-and-so, they were doing, had a nice little business. They were doing, 1.5 million with a reasonable margin, kind of a flat net profit, but doing okay. And, they're doing 5 million now. They've got a healthy gross profit margin. They're double digits in their net profit after paying themselves, paying themselves a reasonable salary and the overhead. That's cool. Certainly, whether it's that big, whether it's 1 to 2, whether it's, I'm still doing 1.5, but I've doubled my gross profit and doubled my net profit. Lots of examples I could give there, but I almost go back to the stories of Stu Kavanagh. That's like my go-to of like, yeah, Stu's built a really nice business. Stu went from not being able to understand his P&L at all to talking about some of the tax strategies he's employing to optimize what he's paying in taxes. That was a transformation over the years. But I go back to some of my best work in 18 years was what I did where I taught him how to not have those evening appointments and to prioritize family time over his business. Like, cool. Go ahead and line that up against $300,000 more in net profit. Some people might go, well, I'd rather have that, Kyle. That story is actually better. But I would go back to, people being overwhelmed in business and feeling in control of their business, and their wives or their spouses being so much happier about how their business is going is what I kind of hang my hat on. And hopefully, yes, we make a couple $100,000 more as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I want to wrap it here with, a little transition to what would Sarah's best advice be for, couples out there who are, whether they're working together or not, but just about, how does she, manage being in a relationship with you and you guys, having.
Hey, the way that you said that, well, what do you mean by that?
Like you're similar to me. We kind of go chase shiny objects and squirrel and, a little bit of that ADD thing going on. But what would she say? Because, again, she's spoken now multiple times. I think she's put together a very, well thought out, probably stuck to the script, stuck to the presentation. But, in all seriousness, like what advice, would she and would you have, for those couples out there who are, maybe struggling with their marriage? How do you manage this work-life balance? I'm still trying to figure out what the balance part means myself. So how do you do that? What advice do you have?
That Sean Van Dyke, he's a coach in our industry. And he used a phrase. I just remember him saying it. He probably grabbed it from somebody else or he invented it, of like work-life integration. I do like that phrase. But to Sarah's at the Rise conference, I just picked up my phone and I called her in the middle of it. I won't do that now, but that was a fun moment where she recapped it. We ended up doing a Remodel Your Marriage, Life, and Business back in the fall of 2024. It was the first time that. Sarah's been pretty hands-off in my business. She knows me and she knows what we've done over the years. And she kind of says, I don't think you're going to like that as much. Maybe you should try that. And then I just go, this is a great idea. And then 6 months later, I'm like, you were right. I probably should have done this instead of that. So it's a little more high-level stuff. But I've had this desire to do kind of a couples kind of retreat like we did in the fall of 24 for a long time, just because I've worked with a lot of husband-wife teams. So whether, and by the way, February 2026, we're doing another one, and it's probably going to be the last time we do it for a while anyway. And it's going to be down in Franklin, Tennessee. So if you go to remodellersontherise.com, you can look up our little event coming up in February. What I would say from my own experience and what she would also say is, here's what I would say more than anything is, if I'm talking to, if a bunch of business owners are listening to this, Eric, Kyle, and a bunch of others, you don't become a business owner unless you really love business and you really love building your own thing. And if you're not careful, that can take over your life really quickly. Because there's always growth to happen. I've been running a business for 17 years. I haven't even come close to the end of my to-do list. There's always going to be work there. I remember Sarah talking to me after a vacation years ago and going, you know what, Kyle, maybe we should not take vacations anymore, because the day before you get back and the week after you get back, you're an idiot. Like, you act like, oh, I've got so much work to do, I'm so behind, and you just negate any kind of rest that we had. So I've become better at that. But to me, it comes down to rightly prioritizing your life. And for me, I'm a man of faith. That's important to me, and prioritizing that. As a spouse, I prioritize my marriage heavily. I've made decisions over the years of not traveling, of not taking speaking gigs, of not taking the invite from a client to come and spend a few days. I try to prioritize. I'm a dad of four kids. And by the way, people, it goes fast. Senior in high school. What? Why is she a senior in high school? Sophomore in college. Are you kidding me? I'm the old guy now saying it goes fast. Don't blink. So to me, more than anything, it's prioritizing it. Why, when I post this content that says, hey, busy remodeler, take your spouse on a date tonight, is that one of my best? Every time I post that, every like 4 months, like, it's because sometimes we just let the business in too much. So prioritize in proper order. Make sure that you're really being wise and improving your business so that it doesn't overwhelm you. If you are overwhelmed, go back and listen to this. Go find a coach. Go invest in coaching. Reach out to a local person that is also a business owner that you respect who seems to figure it out, and ask them. Be vulnerable. Be honest with how things are going, and then find the next right thing to do and work towards it. Sometimes that might be sending a text to your spouse being like, dude, you probably wouldn't call him dude, but honey, I have been so out of whack lately. I have been so overwhelmed on the business side that I have totally missed the boat of prioritizing us. I'm taking you on a little lunch date on Friday, and I am going to take better care of our marriage and prioritizing that. That is the key. Like, prioritize what needs to be prioritized, and also refuel yourself. Like, you are pouring out constantly. Like, take time to do things that you enjoy. That's why you started your business in the first place. Not so that you could make a bunch of money, although that's part of it. Not so that you could, just be overwhelmed, so that you could have some flexibility in your life. So those are my answers. And what Sarah would say, she would go back to that priority thing. And she would, and come to the Remodel Your Marriage conference in February, and she'll share more. She's smart.
All right. No, that's all great advice, Kyle, and I appreciate you taking a quick sidestep there, because I think it's so important. I think you do a great job of really blending both the personal life, the work life, and helping others to be able to find that happy medium, prioritizing what is ultimately the most important for them. And, when you're happy at home, you're happy, in your personal life, that's going to help you to be a better leader, be able to achieve better results in your business life as well. So, again, really, really appreciate you coming on, you sharing all this, sharing a little bit of your backstory there. Learned a new nugget or two. Probably, I think I learn a new thing or two every time I talk to you. But again, really, really appreciate it. For anyone who wants to, reach out, get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? Yeah,
remodelersontherise.com would be fantastic. That's got links to everything. If you go to remodelerscommunity.com, that's our Facebook page. If you just go to your podcast and type in Remodelers on the Rise, it'll pop up there. So those would be the best ways to go about it. You could also email Eric and say, here is a takeaway that I got from the podcast you did with Kyle, and then he'll forward that on to me. Or you email me at kyle@remodelersontherise.com, or email both of us. And that would be fun.
Man, they'd get two birds with one stone with that one. Well, let's see who does it, Kyle. Let's first 5, they get a special little gift or something.
Yes, first 5 are going to get. Eric and I are both committing to this. You're welcome. You just signed up for it. The first 5 people that email a very clear takeaway, not like, oh, this is the podcast, a very clear takeaway that you are going to implement. That's what you need to share. You need to email both Eric and myself. A very clear takeaway. The first 5 people that do that are going to get a swag item from me, and JobTread is going to mail you a swag item.
Yep.
2 boxes you're going to get. Ooh, look at this hat. This is circa 2000. Might be one of these hats. Might be one of those hats. Might be a little mug. Who knows? And JobTread, I hear they have like keys to cars they give away and stuff. So who knows?
I don't know about that, but who knows is right. Well,
that would be epic though. I've seen that done where like at JobTread Connect, if you like had some kind of competition of like best JobTread implementer and like it gets voted on and they get a car, it'd be amazing.
I'm sure that would be amazing. I think the only time those types of things happen is when you also purchase like an insurance policy and there's some sort of like a game that like, nobody ever gets it. And, your insurance, just kind of was there for backup. Yeah. But, I don't know.
But Taylor and the gang, if you're listening to this, there's a new idea for JobTread Connect 2028.
All right. Yeah, maybe 2028. That's right. All right, Kyle. Look, I appreciate it. Thanks again for coming on. Thank you everyone for tuning in, for listening. Kyle and I look forward to hearing your takeaways.
Cool.
Have a good one. See ya. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.